Welcome to Litbit channel. Today we will see the poem "A Ring Is to Me Is a Bondage" by Mina Assadi. About the poet Mina Assadi, she was born in 1943 in Iran. About his career, she is an Iran poet, a writer and a translator. Then her notable works are her poetry collection including Flowers for the Gun and The Distant Presence. About her style of writing, free verse, introspective, philosophical, and feminist themes, often exploring individuality, freedom, and spirituality. She is dead on 1998. Let's see the background of the poem. This poem explores the themes of spirituality, individuality, and freedom, reflecting a non-traditional perspective on religious and social conventions. The speaker emphasizes personal spirituality over formal rituals, finding beauty and solace in nature rather than in structured practice. This viewpoint conveys a search for inner peace and containment, diverging from establishing path in favor of personal interpretations of happiness, love, and freedom. Historical context and events of the poem. The poem appears to reflect a modern, introspective take on spirituality, possibly influenced by shifting attitude towards individual freedom and the questioning of traditional norms. The 20th and 21st centuries have seen a growing emphasis on self-expressions where people are more inclined to reinterpret spirituals and social value to fit personal beliefs. Although the poet's cultural background is not explicitly stated, the reference to the Qibla, the directions of Mecca in Islam, implies connections to Islamic traditions, possibly reinterpreted within a contemporary framework that values inner explorations over rigid adherence. The setting of the poem is both physical and mental. Physically, it invokes images of expansive garden, desert landscapes, and the sea, each symbolizing the poet's concept of freedom, solitude, and introspection. Mentally, the poem is set within the poet's inner world where she redefines familiar symbols and values. This mental setting is fluid where landscapes and objects shift meanings depending on her emotional perspective, such as seeing a ring as a bondage and a flower bush as a village. Poet perspective is one of a deeply reflective individuals who value freedoms, solitude, and personal introspections of spiritual and worldly symbols. By dismissing prayer mats, traditional affections, and material wealth, and poet suggests a departure from societal norms. Happiness for her is not about physical place or possessions, but also personal experience like walking along roads lined with silk tassel trees or listening to the music of sparrows. Through this lens, who see a poet who finds fulfillment in solitude and finds traditional attachments and possessions limiting. The rhyme scheme of the poem does not follow a traditional rhyme scheme. It reads more as free verse. This lack of structure complements the poet's themes of freedoms and individuality, rejecting conventional forms in favor of unrestricted flows of thoughts and emotions. The free verse structure reinforces the poet's message of breaking away from traditional expectations and embarrassing a personal path that is fluid and unique. Let's see the poetic device of the poem. This poem employs several poetic devices that contributes to its introspective and philosophical tone. Here are some of the key devices. First one is imagery. Vivid images fill the poem, such as 100 gardens full of silk tassel trees, music of sparrows, and flower bushes is a village. This evokes sensory experience, enhancing the poem contemplative mood. Next one is symbolism. Many images symbolize abstract ideas. For instance, the 5-pound note as wealth, a ring as bondage, and a cage as imprisonment. Each represents ideas about materialism, freedom, and constraint. Next one is contrast and opposites. The poem contrasts ideas like night and day, land and desert, and wealth and poverty, This contrast reflecting the speaker's unique perspective on life and value. Next one is a repetition. The lines, I do not think of prayer mats and but I do think of 100 roads or and repeated, reinforcing the speaker's thoughts on spirituality and self-discovery. Next one is metaphor. There are numerous metaphors such as aloneness is what I call happiness and the desert is what I call home, which reveals that the speaker's inner world and personal definitions of happiness, love and belonging. Next one is personification. The sea is given a human-like sentiments when it looks at the oceans and feels small. This personification gives depth to the speaker's relationship with nature. Next one is paradox. The speakers calls aloneness, happiness and desert home, creating a paradox that encourage readers to think about unconventional meanings of fulfillment and identity. The tone is introspective and reflective with a sense of detachment from conventional beliefs as a speaker defines a concept with wealth, freedom and happiness is a highly personal terms. Overall, these devices together emphasize themes of individuality, self-perception, freedom and the subjective nature of happiness and attachment. See the outline of the poem. The poet interprets the conventional ideas of spirituality, love, freedom and attachment by finding meanings in nature, solitude and freedom. Then this poem reimages common ideas about spirituality, happiness and freedom by finding fulfillment in nature and solitude rather than in traditional symbols and attachment. The poet begins by rejecting prayer mats, a traditional tool of worship, instead finding spirituality in 100 roads that pass through 100 gardens. This suggests a preference for personal experience spirituality over organized worship. The poet Kibla, the directions of prayer is found where happiness is, showing that the poet's sense of purpose is rooted in personal joy rather than ritual. Throughout the poem, nature is portrayed as sacred, with the poet praying on the silk roads with the music of sparrow, finding spiritual connections in nature's simplicity. Likewise, the poet shows detachment from the traditional view of love, money, and attachments. Love is associated with sadness, while wealth is found in simplicity. A 5 pound note means wealth. For the poet, happiness is aloneness, and the other desert is a home, symbolize containment in solitude and freedom from attachment. The poem contrasts freedom with confinement. A cage is a symbol of restrictions, and a ring, usually associated with love and commitment, is seen as bondage. In this worldview, freedom is highly valued, while attachment, even through marriage or possession, is viewed as a restriction. In conclusion part, the poet redefines spirituality and happiness through a philosophy grounded in nature, solitude and non-attachment. This outlook value internal peace and personal freedom, encouraging a life forged on simplicity and natural beauty rather than traditional symbols or relationship. Thank you viewers. Thanks for watching this video.